We'd like to welcome you to the research launch of the Report of Faith and Belief in Australia, a national study conducted by McCrindle Research looking at religion, spirituality and worldview trends.
Great to have you here, and all I want to do is give you some background to how we got to today. We were developing a series about 5 years ago, and we were looking at, it was called Towards Belief, which was then made and released in 2013, and it was looking at the belief blockers within the Australian community. So because I needed help, I actually got a think tank together. Some of you in the room were at the think tank, and the think tank was really asking the question, so what are the belief blockers? How should we approach this? What's the best way to deal with belief blockers? Within that discussion, there was a few really key ideas that came up, but one of them was this, that there's a lot of commentary on what the belief blockers in Australia are, but there's not a lot of data. And so the outcome of that think tank was to say, well, let's go out and find the data. It was released in 2011, and just at the end of last year, especially kind of around census and etc., a few different groups came back to us at Olive Tree Media and to McCrindle Research and said, 5 years later, is it time to redo the research?
Thanks, Carl and the team at Olive Tree for getting the band back together again, and 6 years on conducting this research. Ben Farland. The census that we all fill in every 5 years asks us, what is your religion? But it's more around sort of almost like a historical thing, a category. It's not about your personal identity or current practice. There's no census that it's personalised. It might be like other questions in the census is, what's your ancestry or where were you born? It's a little bit objective and a bit disassociated with us personally. And so we wanted to tighten that question up a bit. We wanted to put an option in spiritual, not religious, which you don't get in the census. And we wanted to ask people about where they're at currently. So we asked in this national study, with what religion do you currently practice or identify? And amongst the options of the typical and traditional religion options and no religion was the option of spiritual but not religion. When you force people to respond, as we did in our survey, suddenly the no religion actually rises to 32% of all Australians. And if you give spiritual not religion as an option, that goes to 14% of Australians are spiritual but not religious, which brings the Christianity numbers from 61% in the census down to 45%. So that gives a more realistic lay of the land as to what's happening in Australia.
Well, when we think about how Australians get attracted to investigating spiritual things, the top thing that the research shows is that they're most attracted to think about spirituality when they see people live out a genuine faith. So for them, it's about that tangible reality of seeing an individual person live out a day-to-day faith that's true for them. And the second thing is coming into contact with perhaps a traumatic event or a major life crisis. It gets them to think a bit bigger about what's going on and think about what they believe in a much greater depth. And the third thing that attracts people to thinking about spirituality is seeing individuals who have had a tangible change in their own life as a result of coming into contact with faith or spirituality.
We found that Australians generally are positive towards Christianity. You've got not only 45% that say Christianity is my identity, but about 38% will actually personalise that and say, I call myself a Christian. I am a Christian. So that sort of shows where we're at, and that's the national data. More than a third of Australians consider themselves a Christian. But then on top of that, you've got another 1 in 4 who are warm towards Christianity. They say, well, I'm not a Christian, but I believe in much of Christianity, or I like the ethics of Christianity. I support Christianity. You've got about 12% that are neutral. Well, neither here nor there, but religious freedom is a great thing. And then you've got about a quarter, 26% that are negative towards Christianity. Like, I've got reservations with Christianity, I've got real issues with Christianity, etc. So all in all, 3/4 of Australians are either warm or neutral towards Christianity.
The key thing that blocks someone from wanting to investigate spirituality further is when spirituality or religion, or perhaps Christianity, is represented by a celebrity or a public figure. For them, it has to be genuine. It has to be about that person and that interaction, rather than someone who speaks or markets on behalf of a faith and a religion. And of course, hearing miraculous stories without a basis for evidence is something that does give people a bit of a sour taste in the mouth that they can't quite connect with.
I think there are some strategies that come with this. If Australians are somewhat open towards Christian things, or to at least discussing religion, how do we do it? What are the ways? We found in this that almost 1 in 4 say they're even open, these are non-Christians, say they're open to some extent to considering a different worldview. So there's a lot of warmth and openness out there. It's up to Australians to engage with that, ministry leaders to find the ways to connect. We found the most prominent way non-Christians say of discussing these things is when it's done in a relational way of authenticity. Someone is really living out their faith in a genuine way. So if we can encourage all people to live that way in terms of their faith, to be a go-to people, not just a come to us sort of church, I think it'll have some impact on this land.
So if you were to basically go into most communities, and you can never kind of be across all of the communities, I know this is patchy across Australia, but essentially you've got 62% of Australians that either believe in what we hold to or positively disposed to what we say. Add to that, of the 92% who knew at least one Christian, the top 5 attributes that people gave were positive attributes for people who said they're Christians. Caring, loving, kind, honest, faithful. Remember, they had these options. They had the options of judgmental, hypocritical, intolerant and rude. They were all options and they fell way down the list. So for those who say they know Christians, their response is they're actually a positive group of people within the community. I think we should take heart that when we talk about the things that we believe in, it is not going to be a rude, negative, dismissive response that we have nothing to say and we're not interested.
The research shows that Australians do have some hang-ups about the church. There is some pushback, either historically or also currently, around their experience of church or perceptions of the church. I think churches have to recognise that there are some blockers there that we've got to deal with. But it also shows some openness, some warmth and some great options. So it is up to, I think, Australian Christians to step out and to engage. We can't expect Australians to start suddenly coming to church, but if we can start those conversations, that'll turn things around. And certainly it's not a negative anti-church environment in which we operate, with indeed 45% of Australians with a pretty tight question saying, hey, Christianity is what I identify with. I think that's a good news story.